If you're anything like me, you grew up in the 90s in the super era of the arcade when SNK and Capcom were going head to head and constantly innovating. And because of that, one of my favorite titles from back then is none other than Kizuna Encounter Super Tag Battle. It's part of the Savage Rain series, which had the previous game, Savage Rain, in it. And this was actually, here's the thing that's so interesting about this is honestly the first ever tag team battle fighting game ever out there. Now this predates X-Men versus Street Fighter and the tag team mechanic. And if you're anything like me and you like Fatal Fury, this right here pulls so much from the Real About Fatal Fury series and just the mechanics and everything. So I'm talking about this because why are we talking about a game from 1996? Well, the reason we're talking about this is because SNK has recently re-released this in collaboration with Code Mystics, and now it has online rollback netcode. And man, this game is so much fun. Here's the thing about it. If you want to pick this up, it is now available up until October 18th for 25% off. October 18th, 2025. So if it's past this point and you're watching this video further in the future, hey, it is what it is. You just got to pay the extra 25%, whatever the standard MSRP is. But this is available right now on Steam with rollback netcode, and it's so much fun. This game, I absolutely love this. So here's the thing about it is tag team fighters. This right here, it does differently than what you're used to when you think of tag team fighters. You think of King of Fighters. You think of the Versus series. X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter, Capcom versus Capcom versus SNK, that is kind of a tag battler, but differently. But, Marvel versus Capcom, you think of those, and you look at all the tag fighters that have come out so far in the modern era, such as the Dragon Ball Fighters and such, and you really have to look back at to where all that originated from. Now, granted, X-Men versus Street Fighter and this came out within the same year, but this beat into it, and it was a wholly unique, because if you ever played Savage Rain, that game right there had a two-lane system similar to the Real Bout series. You had an upper area and a lower area. So when Kizuna Encounter came out, they changed it to a tag battler. So yes, there's a character in there whose name is Kim. He is somewhat related to, I believe canonically, he is related to Kim Kapawan, and has some of Kim Kapawan's moves, like his diving kick, as well as his float over horizontal leg slash thing. He has that and many other moves. And what I like about this game so much is how the tag mechanic works, right? Now, you have a specific area for you and your opponent that you have to go in. And when you go into this little quadrant area, it's either red or blue, depending on what side of the screen you're playing on. You go into this area, you can easily swap out to your backup character. Now, whatever character has energy completely depleted at that point, that is the match, right? It's simple. It's one round, so you got to survive. Think, if you need a modern idea of what that's like, think of either Tekken Tag Tournament or, Street Fighter Cross Tekken. That's the closest I can come up with as something that's equivalent to this, because both of those kind of borrow that tag system as well. Now, what I like about it is the way this game plays, right? It plays very similar, like I said, to Real About Fatal Fury, as well as it also plays similar to the Samurai Showdown series. And even if you want to take it a step further, you could say it plays very similarly to World Heroes, because you have your punch, you have a kick, and you also have your heavy, or in this case, your weapon attack. So this is a weapon-based fighter. Every character has a weapon. You have characters like King Leo and King Lion that have swords, as well as using their boxing gloves or MMA gloves. You also have other characters in here too, such as, Hayate, who uses a boomerang and also uses, I believe, Kyokugen Ryu karate. I could be wrong about that, but it seems like a lot of his stuff is very similar to that. And then you also have Max Eagle, who uses an axe, and, so many other characters. The Kim character that's in here, he uses a staff. And, inputs are very similar. You got quarter circle, half circle, pretzel inputs as well. So you also have your desperation moves. So, all your typical standard SNK tropes are here. It's just how do you go through it? Now, I played this. I got early access to this, so thank you to SNK for this opportunity again to be able to cover something else early. And when I played it, so you've got your standard modes that you can go through. You've got your arcade, your one-on-one arcade. You got your 2-player mode. You have a 3-player mode. You have a 4-player mode. And you're wondering, how do you have 3 and 4-player modes? Because again, it's a tag battler. So if you have up to 3 or 4 people, then instead of it just being, one person controls 2 characters, it's got 1 person that's per character. So if you tag out, the other person tags in. And I think that's such a unique concept. And I hope that Kizuna Encounter or the Savage Reign series gets another entry and we get to see what SNK could cook with modern era, because that would be really cool. But anyways, you have that functionality with it. So when you have 3 characters, so one team is 2 players and 1 person has to control 2 characters, or if you do 4-player mode, then you have 4 people each controlling 1 character, and you just had to see, hey, I can't keep going, I need to tag out, and hopefully your buddy can back you up. Now you can also do this online too. Now, speaking of which, online mode. Now, when I played this, when I was playing it during the review period, there weren't really anyone online, so I couldn't really get matches on the day, prior to the release, which is today, which is October 11, 2025. I wasn't able to get online matches prior to that. However, when the game came out, which is why my review is a little bit later, I was able to get some online matches. And when I was playing online, the rollback netcode, Code Mystics are such wizards when it comes to how they build out netcode. It is so good that I literally felt like I was at the arcade cabinets back in 1996 playing this, because this was one of the super hype games back then. I mean, honestly, anything Fatal Fury, Street Fighter, or generally SNK in general back then was hype. But anyways, so I'm playing this online, and I'm like, man, this is so smooth. You got lobbies. Granted, not a lot of people are online. This is kind of similar to the problem I ran into with the Real Bout Fatal Fury 2 online edition that came out last month. It's the same thing where it's not a lot of people online, and it's a shame because so many of the SNK games that are being re-released, from this to Real Bout Fatal Fury 2, also with Last Blade, Mark of the Wolves, was it the KOF 2002 Unlimited match, 98 online, as well as the SVC Chaos. These are great games that, unfortunately, because the player base is so small, and again, this is just because I think, that Capcom and SNK are rivals, but they're also collaborators at this point. In the sense of when it comes to franchises, there are more SNK fighting games than Capcom fighting games, and they usually go neck and neck, with SNK being the one who innovates and then Capcom comes after. You don't believe me? Here's a perfect example. Art of Fighting 3 was the first fighting game to really ditch legacy characters and only bring back 2, 1 and 2, which was Ryo and Robert. And then a year later, in 1997, what happened? Street Fighter 3 did the same thing and only brought back Ryu and Ken initially. SNK tends to do that. I mean, they innovate, just like if you think about it, super moves or critical arts, or if you want to call them that now, that originated with Art of Fighting and then went on to be something that we eventually had in Fatal Fury 2, and then going forward onwards in other SNK games, you got what they would deem desperation moves. Now, and then eventually Capcom went on to bring that into Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So again, this is one of the things, if you're an FGC person, if you don't really know your history, just know that Capcom usually implements whatever SNK invents and for all intents and purposes refines, and just Capcom just puts their own little flavor on it. So in this case, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, SNK has always been so ahead of the curve when it comes to everything. Tag fighters, desperation moves, all this other stuff. Taunting, that was something that Capcom wasn't doing, SNK was doing. It's just so many little things, and if you know your history, you know how just innovative SNK has always been. Now, I will say this, though. Aside from playing online, you can also change other things too. So if you want different wallpapers, because it is a 4:3 aspect ratio versus a 16:9. granted, the game came out in 96. We literally didn't get 16 by 9 until like the early 2000s. I think there was a couple games, maybe in the late 90s, that did have that capability, primarily on PC. But nonetheless, you can select what do you want for the side sections. Now, there's a gallery mode, so you can look at all the different character profile arts and such. You can unlock more stuff as you play the game more. And, it's pretty standard for, an SNK re-release. It's really whatever you would find in previous releases that came to Steam and other consoles, you're essentially going to get this here. Now, if you're familiar with SNK fighting games, you understand SNK boss syndrome. And when you go up against King Leo, the final boss of the game, just understand he is going to beat you senseless. He is super hard. The matches do get progressively harder as it goes on. So, your first two matches when you're going in the arcade route or fighting against CPU, it's very easy. I'm not going to say it's super difficult or anything. It's fairly easy. And then as you go further and further and further on, it gets progressively harder. So you're going to need to know what your character can do. So if you really want to lab, spend some time labbing in practice mode. But just know when you get to King Leo, that man's he's gonna stomp a mud hole in you and walk that some bitch dry. Just keep that in mind. But all in all, I think this is a great re-release, and hopefully this is them testing the waters to see if this is something that they want to bring back as a series, because as far as I know, it's very beloved. I played it a lot on Fightcade. I played it a lot back in the 90s in the arcades, between this, Sam Show 3, Real Bout, Fatal Fury Special, and I want to say Art of Fighting 3. These were the most rotated ones that, and I'm saying this as SNK fighters, and not so much as incorporating other companies as well. I mean, you could throw in World Heroes 2 Jet as well, but these were the games that were rotating constantly in arcade where people wanted to play them because they were so unique and so different. In Kizuna Encounter, there really wasn't anything like this aside from Capcom, the X-Men versus Street Fighter as a tag fighter. So just keep that in mind. This game is great. I absolutely love playing this on PC. Played on my handheld gaming PCs as well. So if you got Steam Deck, or if you've got ROG Ally, or if you got Lenovo Legion Go, you're good to go with that. It plays perfectly fine on it. I mean, it's like 200 and some megabytes, so it's nothing crazy, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah, if you want to pick it up, link will be down in the description. Up till October 18th, you can get 25% off the game. And all that being said, thank you to SNK for the opportunity to review this game and get early access to it, and also to be able to relive my childhood once again, getting to play this absolute gem. Hopefully more people get to play this, more people will pick it up and start playing it. Hopefully we can see some tournaments going with this game. And also, I hope this gets ported like Real About Fatal Fury 2 that is on Steam. I hope this goes to other platforms, because it's great having this on PC, and I think that's the easiest and honestly the cheapest route to put your game first. But for more accessibility for those who don't have PCs, which kind of difficult to think about that in 2025, who doesn't have a computer? I guess most people don't, but it does need to go to other platforms, in my opinion. But that's all I got, folks. What do you think? Have you picked up Kizuna Encounter? Are you enjoying it? Whatever your thoughts are, just go ahead and get the conversation going down in the comment section down below. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you to SNK for the early access, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out. And NEOGEO.